بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Alhamdulillah, tonight we have to cover some of the beautiful lessons from Surah Al Fil. And this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us about a great event that occurred before the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A few days before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, in the same year of his birth, this great event occurred. And this is one of the many things which occurred before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered this world, and also before his prophethood. There were many supernatural events that occurred. The supernatural events which occurred on the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his life are known as mu'ajizat. Mu'ajiza, coming from the word a'jaza yu'jizu i'jaz, which means to render the opposition ajiz and powerless. When a miracle occurs on the hand of a Nabi, it renders the opposition, the opposing party, the mushrikeen, ajiz, they're weak, they cannot replicate it. So, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, for example, is a mu'ajiza, is a miracle of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving the challenge in the Quran that you bring all of your false, bring all of your gods, your false gods, and فَأْتُوا بِكِتَابٍ فَأْتُوا بِعَشْرِ سُوَرٍ مِثْلِ هَذَا فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ. There are three challenges. Bring a Quran like this, bring 10 surahs like this. See if you can bring even one surah like this Quran. So that is called a mu'ajiza. If Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with his finger, he was able to split the moon in half. One half goes on one side, one half goes on the other side, and then onto the east and to the west, and then they join together. This is a miracle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is a dalil of his nubuwah, a sign of his prophethood. That can anyone else bring something to match this? Now it's your turn. Can you split the moon? Literally. That's what a mu'ajiza means. But at the same time, there are other events which occurred before the prophethood of Rasulullah, before his bi'athah, before he was granted nubuwah. From his childhood, we'll see many supernatural events occurring. These are known as irhas, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is laying the foundation in the minds of the people that this is no ordinary baby, this is no ordinary child. For example, in Sirah, if you recall, in school when we learnt, there is an incident of the shaqqul sadr. Like we talked about shaqqul qamar, the moon being split. There's also the incident of shaqqul sadr, where the chest of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was split open. When did this happen? When he was with his foster mother Halima Sa'diyah in the Banu Sa'ad tribe in the desert, and he was out with his foster brothers, young boy playing. And his brothers, they come and run to Halima Sa'diyah and they say that a very strange thing has happened to our friend and our brother, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, later to be sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And they are terrified and they rush out, the foster father and mother, and they see Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the young boy, Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's lying down and he's pale. And his face is pale and he is stunned. And they pick him up and they hug him and they say, what has happened, young boy? What happened to you, our son? And he said that two people, they came out of nowhere. And the brothers, there's witnesses too. And they laid me down on the ground and they split open my chest. And they took out my heart, physically took out my heart. And they had, in one narration, they had some, what he described as snow. We have snow outside now. I should let you go back home early tonight, InShaAllah. Make it shorter. Not as long as Surah Fatiha last week. But they took out some snow in a golden platter, and they cleaned and washed my heart. They took out some black clot that was in there, and they cleaned it, and then they put it back in my chest, and they sealed my chest again. And then the brothers, they said that, yes, we saw this. We saw them taking his heart out. Of course, the young children were terrified. Anyone would be terrified. Adults would be scared beyond their wits if something like this happened. So naturally the question might come in my mind came when I read this when child, in your mind might come that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to purify the heart of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's fine, that makes sense, that's logical. Why didn't He just create it pure in the first place? Why do you have to have the black spot and then you have this huge operation and you have this open heart surgery when the heart's taken out and clean? Why couldn't Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy and keep it clean from the beginning? It's a valid question, right? So the scholars, they answer this. They say that this incident happened and the brothers witnessed it and then the parents witnessed it and they told others, and this became known in the biography of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam amongst the others in the Quraysh that about this supernatural event that occurred. And this was one of many other events that occurred in his early life, in his childhood, to set the stage and to create that framework within the minds of the people so that they already knew that this is not a normal baby. There's something very unique and strange about this person. There are so many supernatural events that are associated with him. And of course Halima Sa'diyah, she knew that from the beginning when she took him, how her situation changed immediately. Her donkey, which was in the back, came into the front of the caravan. The milk started overflowing with milk. Her camel, herself, her own body, etc., etc. They witnessed the barakat. So this became known. People knew that his heart was open, something was taken out and cleansed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make the idhar and express the fact that this is not a normal baby. Likewise, before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was even born, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed this very great supernatural event to occur as an indication of an even greater event which is to happen in that same year. And that is the story of Ashab Al Fil. Just like last time we went word over word and we had most of the discussion on the words of Surah Al Fatiha, today is a little bit different approach because the major part of what we are going to learn is the actual story. So we have to, InShaAllah, it'll be easier, we can enjoy the story of what happened. So, first of all, when is the year? What year did this happen? This is known as Al Fil. I will go over the story first and then we can look at the ayat. InShaAllah, wrap it up at the end. First, the story. The Prophet ﷺ's parents, they got married in 569, 1 year before. Abdullah and Amina. And this was the next year, right when Rasulullah ﷺ was still in the womb of his mother Amina, when Abraha came with an army to attack the Kaaba with the intention to destroy the Kaaba. What you have to understand here in this map, what we see here is the different, first of all I have to give the credit to our dear Dr. Rafi, who is the one who made these slides, and he put a lot of effort into that, and we are just using it and we're all benefiting from it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. We see here the Persian Empire and the Byzantine Empire. These were the two great empires in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, preceding him and even during his lifetime. And they were always vying for power, fighting with one another. The Persian Empire, the flame there indicates that they were fire worshippers, Majus. In the Byzantine Empire, the cross there, it represents the fact that they were Christians. And not only were they fighting against one another, they had their different vassals and different princes of different areas, outlying regions and colonies, which were also vying with one another. All the way in the south of the Arabian Peninsula, we have Yemen, and we have across from the Red Sea, Ethiopia. The Ethiopians, they were allied with the Christians. The Najashi had also accepted Christianity. And here in Yemen, the Himyar, who were Arabs, they were the rulers of Yemen. And the last of the Himyar kings, Zunawas, he committed great atrocities and zulm and oppression upon those who accepted Tawheed. As we will see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this story in Surah Al-Buruj. وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. This is the story here. Cursed are أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ, the makers of the pits, the trenches. النَّارِ ذَاتِ الْوَقُودِ, of the fire that was kept burning with fuel. إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٌ, when they used to sit by it. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ, and they were witnessing that which they were doing with the believers. What is this story is that the Himyar king, when he saw that the people had started accepting the deen of Isa alayhi salam, and this is a detailed story of its own, which is not an Israeli narration or something which came from the Jewish books, but rather is mentioned in Musnad Ahmed ibn Hanbal and in the Sihah Sitta. This narration is there, that there was a king of that time, and he had a magician, and the magician was getting old. And the magician, he told the king that I am going to die soon, and before I die, I need to teach my art and my science to someone. So please send a student so I can transfer this knowledge before I die. So the king, he selected a boy and he lived in the palace with the king. He sent him from the palace. He used to send him to the magician to learn magic. As the child was going to learn magic, this young boy, smart boy, on the way, he met a monk who was a rahib, who was doing ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who was on the correct deen of Isa alayhi salam. He was not involved in any shirk, rather he was following the correct deen of Allah and a believer in the Nabi of Allah, Isa alayhi salam. And what happened is, he ended up stopping on the way and listening to what he had to say, watching him do ibadah. He became attracted, and then he got late by the magician. So the magician got upset with him. Why are you so late? He went back the next day and he stopped by the rahib and told the rahib that I want to stay with you and sit and learn with you, but I get in trouble when I go late to the magician. So he said, tell the magician that the king sent you late. And when you go late back to the king, tell the king that the magician, he held you back. So keep on making these excuses. So he would make the excuses both ways, and instead of going to the magician, he continued to stay and study with the rahib, with that monk. And he learned Tawheed, and he learned the deen, and he became close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One time after finishing his lesson with the monk, what happened is, he was going back to the palace when he saw this big beast which came in the path and was blocking the path. And people were afraid of it and they were not able to cross the path. They were trying to go here and there, trying to go around it. So he thought to himself, he said that this is the opportunity I have to test and find out which deen is the correct deen, the deen of the monk or the deen of the magician. So he took a stone and he threw it and he said that, oh Allah, the Allah that the monk is teaching me to worship and believe in, if you are true, then destroy this beast. And he threw it and that beast died right on the spot. So the people who were there, they became very impressed naturally that this young boy has some magical powers. And different people came and asked him to make dua for them. Different people who were blind and sick and terminally ill. He made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told them that now his own yaqeen had become strong. His conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was strong. So he asked them that if you believe in Allah and say La ilaha illallah, then I will make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you cure. He is the one who grants shifa. So the people, they recited the kalima, became muwahideen, started following tawheed. He made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and their sicknesses were being cured one by one. Then there was a member in the court, a royal member, a member of the family of the king, who had become blind. And then he also came to this young boy when he heard about it, and he asked him that, I heard you have some magical powers, you can cure people. So he said, no, that's absolutely wrong. Rather, Allah is the one who grants cure. And you have to believe in Allah. He said, who is this Allah? He introduced him to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To make long story short, he also recited the kalima. He made dua to Allah, Allah granted him vision. And then when the king ended up seeing his, this minister, this member of his royal family, is now, his vision has returned to him. He is seeing. He was very surprised and he said that, how did you regain your eyesight? What happened? So he said that, Allah is the one who gave me my vision. He said, I am your Allah. Which other Allah is there? I did not give you your eyesight back. What are you talking about? Then of course, he was tortured, and he ended up revealing that the identity of the boy is the one who taught me this deen. The boy was tortured, and he was asked, where did you learn this? And he ended up divulging the name of the monk. The monk was brought, he's trying to trace it back, where is this Tawheed coming from? And then he was sawed in half. He became shaheed, from his head to his bottom. He was cut in half, and he was made shaheed. Then thereafter the king, he wanted to give the same punishment naturally to the boy. So he took some of his soldiers and he gave them the task, take this boy up to the top of the mountain and throw him down. So they took him up to the top of the mountain, and they were going to throw him down off the cliff when there was an earthquake, and all the soldiers, they fell off and they died. The boy, he was safe and sound, and he came walking back down into the town. He was brought again in front of the king. The king said, what happened to the soldiers who were out to kill you? He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala killed them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought an earthquake and they were destroyed. Then he said, okay. He brought some other soldiers and guards, and he said, take him and dump him in the middle of the ocean. They went in a boat, they went out into the sea, and they were about to push him overboard when a storm came, and the weather changed drastically, and the boat overturned. They all drowned, and he swam back to the shore and he came back onto land, walked back like indestructible, Superman. Then he came back in front of the king. The king said that he's tried to throw him off the top of the mountain, didn't work, tried to throw him into the ocean, did not work. That's why I mentioned, since it's such a detailed narration, you might think this sounds like a story, a fairy tale. That's why I gave it is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then what happened is the boy said, look, I'll try to make your task easier for you. You want to kill me, you want to take my life, there's only one way you are going to be able to kill me. What is that? You have to gather all of the people, gather the entire population, most of the people. Of course, if it's not possible to gather every single person, gather the majority of the population in a big plain and ensure that all the people are invited and they all gather there. Once they're all gathered there, then hang me up on a tree. And then take this arrow from my quiver and fit it in my bow and then shoot it. But when you're shooting, you have to say and loudly proclaim so everyone can hear, Bismi Rabbi Hadal Ghulam. In the name of the Lord of this boy, I shoot this arrow. And make sure that it goes straight to my heart, in my chest. That one arrow, in the name of the Lord of this boy, you have to shoot it. Proclaim it and then shoot. If you don't take the name of my Lord, it's not going to have any effect. It will rebound off me, or it will not enter me, or it will miss me, or whatever the case, I will not die. So he said, okay, if this is the way to kill you, I will do whatever I need to do. He gathered all the people. Everyone was a witness to this great day. Everyone was invited. They all appeared. They all were present. And then he loudly said, Bismi Rabbi Hadal Ghulam. In the name of the Lord of this boy, I shoot the arrow. And when he shot the arrow, it pierced him right in his heart and he died. But what happened? The entire population said, Amanna bi Rabbi Hadal Ghulam. We declare our iman and we believe in the Lord of this boy. So he gave his life, but ended up becoming the means of hidayah for the entire country, all of the people. So the king was absolutely infuriated, and he was full of, his anger knew no bounds. He was now, the worst possible scenario he could ever imagine had now happened. Everyone accepted Islam. But he was adamant till the end. He said, okay, I'm not going to give up. He started telling the people that you will lose your life, you will be killed if you continue to profess this belief. You have to come back to shirk. And they said, no, we will die, but we will not give up this newfound faith. We all believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then he ordered his soldiers that in all the alleys, in all of the different streets and within the communities to start digging trenches. So they dug deep trenches everywhere. And then they collected firewood and they started lighting fires. So they created fires everywhere, and it's written that the fire spread throughout the whole area as if the whole area was now being burned up. And then the soldiers were dragging those who were following Tawheed, following La ilaha illallah and Isa alayhi salam's deen, up to the edge of the fire and asking them one more time, do you give up your faith, or are you going to be ready to be thrown into this fire? And alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them that strength of iman, that they all remained steadfast on their deen, and they chose to accept the fire of this dunya to protect themselves from the eternal fire of the hereafter. And it was on this occasion where finally there was one woman with a young infant baby in her arms, and she was standing at the edge of the pit of the fire and with her baby, and she was hesitating for a moment. When she was given that final ultimatum that you have to either renounce your faith or you will have to jump into this fire, she was looking at her baby and she was feeling a little bit hesitant and doubting what to do, when the baby spoke up and said, this is one of those occasions where the babies takallamu fil mahdi, they spoke out from the cradle, from the hand, from like Isa alayhi salam, and the incident of Jurayj, and this one as well. So the baby spoke up and said, oh my mother, do not hesitate, jump into the fire, and that is your salvation. So she gained the courage and she jumped with her baby into the fire. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here in Surah Al-Buruj. In the beginning is a different oath Allah ta'ala takes, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. Cursed are the makers of the pit. النَّارِ ذَاتِ الْوَقُودِ. Of the fire which is kept burning with fuel. إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٍ. When they are sitting by it, meaning the guards and the tyrant king himself, they are sitting and watching. It's not that, he gave the order and he's not aware of what's going on, but rather he is standing there and watching the people burned to death. إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٍ. Allahu A'lam, if this is as I remember going in school, the statement we heard that Stalin, he said that if you kill one person, it's a great tragedy, but if you kill 1 million, it's a mere statistic. So that means that in this case, if 20,000 people, is narrated, were killed and burned. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, إِذْ هُمْ عَلَيْهَا قُعُودٍ. It's not that he just passed an order and he wasn't aware of the cries and the hue and the pain that they were going through. Rather, qu'ud, he was sitting right there watching the victims burned to death. Not only qu'ud, look at the next ayah. وَهُمْ عَلَى مَا يَفْعَلُونَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ شُهُودٌ. And they were witnessing that which they were doing with the believers. That makes the sin and the level of the crime even worse. وَمَا نَقَبُوا مِنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَمِيدِ. The only reason they're taking this vengeance and revenge against them and killing them is because the only crime is they believed in Allah, who is Al-Aziz, the Mighty, the Praised, Al-Hamid. الَّذِي لَهُ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. The one who has the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. Don't ever think that if Allah was not coming to their immediate aid, it's because Allah was weak. No, He has the kingdom of the heavens and the earth. وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ شَهِيدٌ. Was He not aware of what's going on? No, rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ala kulli shay'in shaheed, is completely aware and witnessing all that was happening. Then Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتَنُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Surely those who are persecuting the believing men and the believing women. ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتُوبُوا. And then they do not repent. فَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمْ. For them is the adhab of Jahannam, the chastisement of hellfire. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ الْحَرِيقِ. And the chastisement of burning, the fire of Jahannam. Whereas إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who believe and they did righteous deeds, لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٌ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِ الْأَنْهَارِ. For them there are gardens beneath which rivers are flowing. ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْكَبِيرُ. This is the great achievement. So this great tragedy occurred. So two of the Muslims of that time, I don't like to say Christians of that time, as is written in the books, because they were following the correct deen of Isa alayhi salam. When we say Christians, we think of those who fell into Trinity or started believing Isa alayhi salam is the son of Allah, etc., etc. So they were following the correct deen, the Islam of that time, believing in Allah and the Isa alayhi salam as the Prophet of Allah. They escaped from there and they went to the Roman Emperor. And they said that, please come to our aid and save us from Zu Nawas and this Himyari Mushrik king who is killing us, burning us. We are the only ones who escaped. The rest of our nation has been destroyed. So he was far away, the Roman emperor, from Yemen. So he wrote a letter to Najashi, who is in Ethiopia, just across the sea. And he asked him to come and help. And he said that you go and attack Yemen and destroy this Himyari king who has committed such zulm and oppression. This happened in 525. The Abyssinian Ethiopian Christians, with the help of the Roman Empire, 70,000 men, they did the second conquest of Yemen. And the Najashi, he sent his generals, amongst them was Abraha al-Ashram. He assassinates his leader Irat and assumes leadership of Yemen. First was Irat. Irat was the original leader of the army that came from Ethiopia. Abraha was one of his lieutenants. But after they conquered Yemen and they took over Yemen, then Abraha, he killed his general and he assumed command. Najashi was very upset by that and had taken an oath that I will slaughter him and I will stamp on his blood on the land of Yemen. Abraha became very frightened. He took out some of his blood. This is mentioned by Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya. And he took out and put it in a vial, and he took some sand from Yemen, put it in another container, and he sent it to Najashi. And he said that, take my blood, pour it on the sand, and you can stamp on it to fulfill your pledge and your vow, but please know that I am your loyal servant and I will continue to obey you. In any case, Abraha, he became the ruler of Yemen. So this is how Abraha came into power. Abraha was a Christian. So first they were mushrikeen there, then Abraha came as a Christian. But he was a fanatic Christian. He built churches everywhere throughout Yemen, and he built one huge cathedral in Sana'a. And it is mentioned that it was so high that a person would enter and he could not see the top where it ends. And he beautified it with gold and silver and all types of precious stones in ivory. And he wanted the Arabs to start making Hajj here rather than going towards the Kaaba. He was jealous of the Kaaba, the Baytullah. This was the year of the Alf in 570 CE, Yemen under the rule of Abyssinia. Abraha, the vice regent of Abyssinia to Yemen, builds a magnificent cathedral in Sana'a to rival Makkah. His intention was, he was jealous of the Baytullah, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wanted the people to come here rather than to go towards Baytullah. This is a picture of Sana'a today. So then, what happened is the Arabs, they were very upset with his claim and with his invitation that everyone should come make tawaf here, everyone should make Hajj here. One of the Arabs from the Kinana tribe, he came into his cathedral and he went and he defecated in there to show his disgust. And some other tribes, they came by and they were making their campfire and the wind was blowing, or it was intentional, the different narrations, a lot of detail there. But in short, the cathedral suffered from arson and a great portion of it was destroyed by the fire. So this really angered Abraha. First of all, the Arabs were degrading his house of worship. They were not coming there and making Hajj there as he wished. On top of that, they defecated there and then they burnt it down. So he made a plan that I will go and destroy the house of Allah, the Baytullah. And for that, he asked for help from Najashi, who is the king that he was a governor of in Ethiopia. And Najashi, he sent him 8 elephants. And besides those 8 elephants, war elephants, he sent him one very large, extremely huge elephant, Mahmud, which was a massive elephant, extraordinarily large, and so that this elephant could come and terrorize the horses of the Arabs. And for the first time in the history of Arabia, these elephants were imported into the Arabian Peninsula. They came across the sea, they brought them. Elephants are not indigenous to Arabia. Naturally, this was something that if any of the other animals would see, they would become scared and run away. So he made these huge plans and everyone knew about it. This was not something that was hidden. He announced it, that I'm going to destroy the Kaaba, the Baytullah. So there were 2 different attacks, 2 different battles that took place on the way to Makkah, where the Arabs were trying to stop him. and they both failed. So first of all, the Yemenis, the Arabs who were there, they themselves gathered together and tried to offer some resistance, tried to stop this army, but they were killed. And their commander Zu Nafar was captured. Then he kept on moving north, and Nufail, who was the chief of the tribe of Khatha'am, he was again captured, and that battle also the Arabs lost. So then third stop, he came to Taif on the way to Makkah. When he came to Taif, the Banu Thaqif, they already heard that there were two attempts before to stop this army, and both of them failed. So they didn't offer any resistance. Rather, they showed their friendship, and they said that please, you're welcome. And they even sent a man to become the guide for the army of Abraha to attack Makkah, Abu Righal. This is a very infamous man, that he was the guide for Abraha towards Makkah to destroy the Kaaba. And the Banu Thaqif, they had their idol Allat, and they had their big place of worship in Taif, and they wanted to make sure that that would not be hurt. It's okay if the Kaaba is destroyed, but as long as our place is not under attack, then they were happy by that. So they showed their support for Abraha. Abraha continued north, and he came towards the Kaaba. When he came towards the Kaaba, outside of the Kaaba, he camped at Mughamis. This is a pasture land outside of Makkah where the Quraysh used to leave their camels and their sheep to graze. And when whatever he found there, all the animals, he captured them. Amongst them were 200 camels that belonged to Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Quraysh, they had a mashwara, they had a council, and they decided, what should we do? How should we react to the situation? They knew that the Yemeni Arabs tried, and they were destroyed. The Banu Khatha'am, they tried to stop this advance, they were also destroyed. Now they are outside of Makkah al-Mukarramah, they're very near. What should we do? So Abdul Muttalib, he said that, look, there is no way we can offer any resistance. There is no way if we take up arms we will be able to stop them. So we have to trust in Allah, and we will call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to defend His house. Let us all go up into the mountains around the city. So they all vacated Makkah al-Mukarramah and climbed the mountains, and Abdul Muttalib, before he left, he went up to the door of the Kaaba and he held on to the rings of the Kaaba, and he made the final plea to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, Allahumma anta Rabbul Bayt. Oh Allah, you are the Lord of this house, and I trust in you to save your house. So Abraha, he sent his envoy and his messenger, he came to Makkah, and he came to Abdul Muttalib, who was the leader of the Quraysh, and he said that I have no fight with you, I have no argument with you, I only have the hatred of this house of worship, and I'm going to come and destroy it. And he was starting to talk with him and make some negotiations with him about this. Abdul Muttalib, he said that I have something I need to talk to your leader as well. Let me go and talk to him. He said fine. He brought Abdul Muttalib to the camp of Abraha. When Abraha saw him, he saw the nobleness of on the face and the honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was so impressive in his stature and his presence. His personality was so impressive that Abraha, he felt uncomfortable sitting on the throne and this man standing in front of him. This is none other than the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he thought, what should I do? He was feeling very uneasy that I'm sitting on this throne and this noble man is standing in front of me. So he thought there's two options. One, I can bring him to sit next to me, or I can get off and come stand next to him. But I cannot stand up here and he's standing in front of me like that. So he thought, instead of bringing him and sitting on the throne next to him, he said, let me get off. So he got off his throne and came down to speak to him. And he asked him that, what brought you here? What can I do? So Abdul Muttalib said that there are 200 of my camels that were grazing outside, and your soldiers, they captured them, and they took them, they stole them. So I came here to ask about my 200 camels. So Abraha then responded and he said that, when I saw your face, I was so impressed by your personality. You seem like a person of great honor, but I am now disgusted by your response. You are worried only about 200 camels. You're not coming to make any plea or any negotiation with regards to your house of worship, your Kaaba, which is the embodiment of your religion, of your forefathers. You have no concern about that. You're worried about just paltry 200 camels. That's all you're concerned about. So at this juncture, Abdul Muttalib, he gave a very strong response. He said that, Ana Rabbul Ibli, I am the Lord of these camels, they belong to me. Walil Bayti Rabbun Yahmi. And the Baytullah, the Kaaba, has a Lord. He will defend it. So I came to talk to you about my property and what is under my jurisdiction. You are dealing, if you want to, you have evil designs against the Baytullah, the house of Allah, that doesn't belong to me, it's not mine. That belongs to Allah. وَإِنَّ لِلْبَيْتِ رَبٌّ يَحْمِيهِ. He will defend it. You are taking it up against Him. I am the Lord of the camels, and the Baytullah likewise has a Lord who will defend it. So this, when Abraha heard this response, he got shook up and he said, okay, fine, give him his 200 camels, let him go from here. And Abdul Muttalib left. Then what happened is, these are the camels he took. Right when they were about to leave, Nufail, who was captured by the Abraha on the way, this was one of the Arabs, he learned some elephant commands from Unais, the keeper of the elephant, and he commanded the elephant to kneel. What is this referring to? This is referring to Mahmud, the elephant of Abraha, when they were about to attack and were getting ready to make the final move on the Kaaba. Actually, this picture I would avoid it because it's a picture of a living animal. What happened is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a final warning to Abraha that the Mahmud, his elephant, did not move towards Kaaba. When they faced it towards Yemen south, it was ready, got up and was ready to run. When they faced it towards Syria, it was ready to run. When they faced it towards Makkah al-Mukarramah, it stopped. The same thing happened in the time of Rasulullah SAW as well. When Rasulullah SAW was going to perform the Umrah in the 6th year of Hijrah, and it came to their knowledge that Khalid ibn Walid, who was still on the side of the Mushrikeen, he got some army ready to stop the Muslims. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu at that point said that we'll fight against him and we will ensure that no one comes between us and the Kaaba. And at that juncture, the camel of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Qaswa, it sat down. And they were pushing it and they're beating it, prodding it, trying to make it get up and move, and it did not move forward. And then the people said, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in, they said that maybe it got scared or it's frightened or something's wrong with it, it's sick, why is it not moving? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, habasaha habisul fili. The one who stopped the elephant, Mahmud, that Allah has stopped its movement now. And then he took an oath, he said, Wallahi, I swear by Allah, the one who controls my life, I will not desecrate the Kaaba, and I will not allow the blood to be shed in the Kaaba, and I will ensure that the sacredness of the Kaaba is upheld. And after he took that oath and he said, Wallahi, then immediately the Qaswa got up and started moving. Subhanallah. So this is what happened in the time of Abraha, that the elephant, it stopped, and they kept on beating it and it did not move forward. There are other incidents like of this nature in the Quran and the Hadith that we find where the animals were, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stopped them and to show different signs. This is one beautiful example of that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala finally sent an army of birds, tayran, as you will see, ababil. They came in flocks. And these birds, they were holding in their beaks and in their claws stones made of clay, hijaratun min sijil. The birds have been described by Ibn Ishaq that they were small birds, like sizes of pigeons, and they had red claws and red beaks, and they were a type of bird that had never been observed before. And when they came with these pebbles and they pelted them, the nature of these pebbles were that wherever they struck, whichever animal, elephant or soldier, struck the armor, whatever it struck, it would immediately pierce through, go through the entire body, and come all the way through them, through the flesh, through the bone, through the armor, and come out from the other side, into the ground. And they were also struck with disease and the army went right and left and spread all over. Some of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not allow them to die immediately, but gave them a lingering death where they continue to face the pain and the torture, and slowly, even Abraha, he did not die there, but rather he was inflicted with such a disease that one after another small pieces of his skin and his bone started falling off of his body until he reached all the way to Yemen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like he destroyed Fir'aun and killed Fir'aun and then brought his body out so everyone can see. Likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him such a sickness that he was suffering from that the entire return journey all the way up to Yemen, and his people whom he ruled over, they were able to see his final outcome. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He showed the power of the Quraysh and the respect of the Quraysh, which became firmly embedded in the minds of all of the Arabs, because they saw that these are the people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly intervened, and He sent this army of birds to defend them and to defend His house. Looking at the ayats now, looking at the words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alam, did you not, tara, do you not see? Kayfa is how. Kayfa fa'ala, how did He deal with? Who did Rabbuka, your Lord? Do you not see how your Lord dealt with? Bi ashab al fil, with the people of the elephant. So this is a question. And this is called istifham inkari, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks a negative question. Did you not see? Lam is not. Is did you? Question mark. It's a harf istifham, article, interrogative article to ask the question. Alam tara, do you not see? Meaning, even though this happened before Rasulullah ﷺ was born, and he did not have the opportunity to see this with his eyes, but this is something that was so well known, it is as if he had seen it. And there's a narration that Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, she narrates that she saw two of the drivers of the elephant of Abraha in their old age. They had become blind and paralyzed, and they were begging people in the streets of Mecca. They saw in their childhood, because this is only 40 some years after the incident of Fil that this surah was revealed. Allah Ta'ala is asking, do you not see how Allah dealt with the companions or the people of the elephant? Alam yaj'al kaydahum fi tadlil. Did He not make their plans? Alam, did He not? Yaj'al, make kaydahum, their plans, their evil designs, their plots, fi tadlil, to go astray. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they made all their plans, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of the planners. وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. وَأَرْسَلَ عَلَيْهِمْ, and did He not send عَلَيْهِمْ, against them, طَيْرًا, birds, ababil, in flocks. Ababil is not a name of a bird or a type of a bird, but rather ababil means in flocks. Small creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, otherwise harmless creation of Allah. It's not frightening in any way, but these birds, they came and they destroyed this entire army. The whole horizon was filled with them. There was no empty space. They came in such large numbers. Tarmihim, they were striking them. Rama yarmi means to strike. They were striking them bihijaratin, with stones, min sijilin, from baked clay. Meaning, there's no baked clay around in that area that they picked it up from. This baked clay came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah alone knows where it came from. And some of the Mufassirin also make a point here that sijil is just clay that is baked. It's so soft. It's not that it was extra hard rock, granite, or extra rock that has been chipped off from the mountains, which would otherwise, you can imagine it being destructive. Just baked clay. What is a baked clay? It's soft. It's not something that is, it's even less harmful than normal stones. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's why He identified bihijara, there are stones, min sijil, just from baked clay. Nothing scary at all. فَجَعَلَهُمْ, then He made them كَعَصْفٍ, like straw, مَأْكُولٍ, that has been eaten up. Like the yellow stalks of straw which is dried and now it's also been eaten up by the animal, how it's all withered and shredded up, that is the condition. of these people. So one thing for us to remember is the army of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ وَمَا هِيَ إِلَّا ذِكْرَى لِلْبَشَرِ in Surah Al-Muddathir. And none knows the forces of your Lord except He Himself. And this is nothing other than a warning to mankind. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His junood, His army. No one knows about the army of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except Himself. In this story here, in this incident that took place, the question that might come to our mind is, where did these Tayran Ababil come from? Nowadays, this is the close example to this is like it's a squadron of Air Force jets. So where did their flight originate from? And where are these Tayran Ababil based? And what was their route of their flight? And how did they come and empty off their payloads and destroy this army? And after finishing their mission, where did they return back to? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. وَمَا يَعْلَمُ جُنُودَ رَبِّكَ إِلَّا هُ. And none knows about the armies of Allah, the forces of Allah, except He Himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can use any creation of His in any means. These birds, they came out of nowhere. Literally, they appeared out of nowhere and they destroyed this entire army and they returned back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the time is coming to end. This is the end of the story, end of the tarjuma, translation of the ayat. What are some of the brief lessons we learn? One of them is, first of all, the whole story of how Abraha came into Yemen. That shows us that first they were mushrikeen, and then they were committing the dhulm. They were throwing people into the trenches, as we learned, and burning them. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Christians who overthrew them, destroyed them, and took over the land. So this is تِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. These are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the days of this world. We continue to transfer it amongst people. Sometimes one nation will be in charge and will be ruling, others will be ruled. Then the days will pass and the tables will turn. Like Allah Ta'ala says, أَلِفْ لَامٍ غُلِبَتِ الرُّومِ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ فِي بِضْعِ سِنِينَ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدِ. The Romans are in charge, they are victorious, defeating the Persians. Then the Persians defeat the Romans. Then the Romans will again defeat the Persians. Allah Ta'ala says, لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ. This is all a play, an illusion. And the reality is, لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدُ. Allah alone is the one who has a complete authority and power before and afterwards. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those ayat, He told us that those who are committing these crimes today and terrorizing the people, they will face the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eternally on the day of Qiyamah. And those who might seem like they are being burned in the fire and they are lost, but they are the ones who will be guaranteed the Jannah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a reminder, we are not suffering from anything of this nature now, but alhamdulillah, we are enjoying peace and prosperity and security in this land here. But at the same time, at this very given moment, this is just a reminder for us that there are others who are maybe closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than us. It's not that we are so righteous that we deserve this peace and stability that we are enjoying. They may be so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they may be far ahead of us, but they are suffering great crimes right now as we speak. And these types of dhulm that are taking place now, this is a reminder that they have been taking place in the past. But if they remain patient till the end, this is a bashara for them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant them the Jannah. And the dhulm will not go unchecked. Inna Allah ya'khudhu yad al-zalim. Allah definitely will catch the hand of the zalim, the oppressor. And when the mazloom and the oppressed one calls out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَأَنصُرَنَّكَ. I will definitely come to your aid, وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. But it may be immediately and maybe after some time. But I will definitely answer your call. And the mazloom, his dua, لَيْسَ بَيْنَهُ وَبَيْنَ اللَّهِ حِجَابٍ. There is nothing that comes between it and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the events that took place that brought Abraha into power in the first place. That's why I went into that detail, just to remind us of that story as well. Because we were not going to be covering Surah Al-Buruj anyway. So we got a reminder of that story. Second thing is, when it comes to Abraha and Abdul Muttalib, we see the tawakkul and the reliance that the grandfather Rasulullah ﷺ had. He had absolute reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could have said that, no, he could have been relying on material means. He could have been saying, he could have wrote letters to other tribes, got the assistance from the Persians who were against the Romans, got the other superpower involved, got their help, asked them to send an army to defend Mecca. But he did not look towards any of the means of the world. He put his trust entirely in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why that dialogue that he had with Abraha is also mentioned by Ibn Hisham in his Seerah to Ibn Hisham, this whole dialogue. And mentioned in authentic books of narrations of Seerah and Tarikh, in which he said that, don't worry, I'm worried about my camels, I'm not worried about Baytullah. The Baytullah has the Lord, He will defend it. This is the Hadith al-Qudsi of Rasulullah SAW, Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. I treat my slave the way he expects from me. Because he had that highest level of conviction and yaqeen in Allah, that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened in the way He did. Does not mean necessarily that this will always be the case. Because we know that before the day of Qiyamah, the Kaaba will be destroyed. And the Kaaba has been destroyed even by Muslims in their civil wars. Somebody will say, oh, is this the general rule? It's always going to happen like this? Not necessarily. Even in this ummah, Hajjaj bin Yusuf came, and when he was attacking Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu ta'ala anhu, during the civil war within the Muslims, unfortunately, being a Muslim, he attacked Makkatul Mukarramah with his catapult, and he ended up destroying the Baytullah. The Baytullah collapsed and was destroyed from the missiles and the projectiles that he was sending from his catapults. Hajjaj bin Yusuf. So that is why, in this case, this supernatural response that came, and this Tayran Ababil, these birds that came in flocks with these bombs, it was as a result of the sheer reliance on Allah, the pure, absolute tawakkul that Abdul Muttalib had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala treats us the way we expect from Him. If we develop that yaqeen, if we develop that iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can come today as well. And that is what the Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in had. If the Muslims do not have that level of iman, if they do not have that level of conviction, then the rules of the world will apply. Whoever has more material means will win, naturally. If the Muslims have more material means, they will win based on asbab, and the non-Muslims will be defeated. But on the other hand, if the non-Muslims have more asbab, they will defeat the Muslims. Being a Muslim will carry no weight because they do not have that yaqeen. But once they have the yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they have the nusrah of Allah on their side, then numbers are of absolutely no consequence. There are 313 Sahaba radiallahu anhum have absolutely no means, but they completely defeat the 1,000 mushrikeen in the battle of Badr. Yawm al-Furqani, Yawm al-Taqal Jama'an. The day of the great criterion, the day when the two armies met. So on what basis were they able to defeat them? Because they had the nusrah of Allah on their side. Once they have the nusrah of Allah, material means are of no consequence. No matter how great the numbers will be, the help of Allah was always with them. It is because they had that yaqeen. They had that belief in Allah. We have to develop that iman, that yaqeen, that we see the barakah and blessing of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this army of birds. Thirdly, third lesson is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed to the rest of the Arabian Peninsula and all of the tribes the virtue and the fadila and the superiority of the Quraysh. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that same year was bringing forth into this dunya the last prophet, his Habib al-Mustafa Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the Quraysh. So this was firmly implanted in their minds that the Quraysh are very special. They are a very special, prestigious tribe. They are the most prestigious amongst us. They are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent an army of birds to defend their city. So much so that other tribes they were always afraid of being hijacked and of being robbed and plundered in their trade journeys. But the Quraysh, they had no fear. No one would attack them. Everyone would respect them. And that is the connection with the next surah. لِإِلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ. That they would be journeying in the summer and in the winter in their trade caravans. They had no fear. No one would touch them. They were the most respected and venerated tribe of Arabia. And this became so firmly lodged in their minds that this became a marker. The whole calendar was based off this year. And if you look in the books of Tarajim, for example, the books of the biographies of people in the past, this is how their birth dates were even mentioned and recorded. Like Abu Sufyan, it is mentioned, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, wulida 20 aam qabla aam al-fil. How do you determine the year of his birth? This was the basis. He was born 20 years before the year of the elephant. This happened 5 years before the year of the elephant. This happened 2 years after the year of the elephant. This became the marker. Whereas Rasulullah SAW, wulida amul fil. He was born in the year of the elephant. And this was the calendar all the way till during the life of Rasulullah SAW as well. The whole calendar was based off the year of the elephant. And during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu as well. It was only during the Khilafah of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, among many of the things that he institutionalized and made part of our ummah, is that he started the Islamic calendar. And he made mashwara with the Sahaba radiallahu anhu ajma'in. That our calendar is based on the year of the elephant. This is something that is pre-Islamic, before the birth of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We should have a new calendar, Islamic calendar. What should the beginning of that calendar be? So some suggested keep the same thing, make it the birth of Rasulullah. Some suggested make it when he got the first wahi, the ba'atha. Make it this event, make it that event. Make it started from Badr, started from this event, started from conquest of Makkah, etc., etc. But then finally the conclusion was that start the Islamic calendar from the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because this was that great event that took place when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they made the sacrifice of leaving their homes, leaving their families, leaving everything and migrating for the sake of Allah. And that is where the tables turned, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the course of the Muslim ummah. That's where the nusrah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began. That is where the Islamic state was established in Medina Munawwara, and that became the beginning of the Islamic calendar. But until then, this year of the elephant was the basis of Islamic calendar. So this was a great honor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted the Quraysh, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them that respect, and this was a prophecy of a greater event that was to come. So we can fill our hearts when we recite the surah with the azma of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the grandeur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the power and might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not bound by any means. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can utilize even the minutest of His creation to do that which is beyond our imagination. It is up to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not change. The Baytullah did not change. Everything is there. Who changed is we changed. If we can develop that yaqeen and that reliance on Allah the way Abdul Muttalib had, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is totally qadir and has the qudra to again send any type of creation to come to the aid of the ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that yaqeen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that conviction in His greatness and protect us from all these trials. And those who are undergoing different oppressions, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve them of that and grant them sabr jameel and grant them the Jannah firdaus. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take the zalim to task for their dhulm. Wa akhir da'wan alhamdulillah.